There's a few things which you absolutely must know when it comes to scaling your e-commerce brand with Google Ads. And these are the same things that have helped me now generate over $100 million in revenue from Google Ads alone in the past 5 years. So if you have been wanting to get some unique advice or some unique ideas on real scale with Google, you'll probably find it here. But with that, the first piece of advice I would give you when it comes to scaling with Google Ads is achieve momentum as quickly as possible. Let me explain what I mean. The way Google works is every time you get a data point coming through via the Google Ads algorithm because somebody purchased something from your ad, or maybe somebody interacted with your ad, somebody clicked on it, this data point now goes into the back end to feed the algorithm information. Think of it like you feeding your body nutrition by eating food. The more food you eat, the more weight you will gain. And that's because that food goes inside your body, it gets dissected, it goes to the correct body parts, and so on and so forth. The same thing happens with Google Ads. Every piece of information that gets fed to the algorithm, it goes inside the algorithm's brain, inside the algorithm's head, and it makes it smarter. So the next time that the algorithm tries to go out and find an ideal customer for your brand, it now has an easier time because of the data points it already got yesterday or the day before. And this momentum is what truly gets Google Ads scale going. It's the best ways to achieve momentum, how we have always done it, regardless of the niche the brand is in or the industry the brand is in, is by basically adding, first of all, multiple campaign types and not relying on just other performance max campaigns or standard shopping campaigns, but going beyond the horizons into search, demand gen, even YouTube, etc. Because all these data points, they work hand in hand. If your main goal is to be very profitable in shopping, that can now happen quicker because you're feeding all this information on the account level. But this brings me to the second piece of advice I have, which is never analyze your data for your Google Ads account on a daily basis. I see this happen so often where e-commerce brand owners, they're inside their ad account literally every single day like a hawk, just looking at the graphs, looking at all this data, trying to make sense of it. And although it may seem like it's making sense to you that yesterday you were unprofitable, today is a better day, so on and so forth, the reality is Google's algorithm does not even provide you data that quickly, and that too accurate data. It's generally a bad idea to make any type of decision on a day-to-day basis. That's why it's always crucial, if you want to scale to the next level, to make changes based on a weekly basis or maybe even a 14-day basis. And this is exactly what we do, by the way, for the brands that we are handling under my Google Ads agency, Your Marketing, which if you run a brand doing $1 million a year and you want to scale to the very next level with Google Ads, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me to see essentially how we can work together and make that happen. But this now brings me to the third piece of advice, which is focus on creating an ecosystem to truly scale your Google Ads account. Here's what I mean. So with the product level ecosystem, you need to have separate strategies for the different pieces of the product you have based on where they are within the entire approach. So are they products which are currently getting tested, which have not really proven themselves? Or are they products which are kind of profitable, they're not really scaling, but they're not losing money either? Or are they products which are just bringing you majority of their revenue? These are three different systems that you need to have campaigns around, because if you combine all of these three together, that's when problems start to arise. That's when the algorithm starts to become confused. So ideally, you want to have this three-step approach where it's something called the TPS strategy: testing, profitability, and scaling. That's the first part of your ecosystem. Now, second part is based on the campaign type and what traffic it generates. So the second type of ecosystem we typically like to implement is where some of the kind of traffic coming in is for cold traffic. The other traffic is hot and warm traffic. Typically, we implement the 80-20 rule here because we want 80% cold traffic, 20% warm or hot traffic. So that ultimately leads you to scaling. When you have this ecosystem in place, it almost becomes too difficult not to scale. You will notice your ad spend is going out of what you set on a daily limit, and there's the limited by budget signs that you're always getting for some of your campaigns. This is when you know you have an ecosystem in place and all of it is working hand in hand together. But this brings me to the fourth piece of advice, which is never rely on one piece of product. I don't care how good it is. I don't care how long it's been running. I don't care what the search volume is. Even if it's 1 billion monthly searches a month, it doesn't matter, because ultimately there is something called product market saturation, which will start to happen. And this is true for even Google Ads, where just the users will see your ad so many times, your users will buy your product so many times that it will reach sort of this plateau level, or even it might even start declining in terms of revenue. So this generally starts to lower the scale, and when you're at the peak, you don't want this to be happening. So instead, what you want to be doing is essentially you want to have different ways to expand that one winning product. And it doesn't matter if you run a one product store or if you have multiple products, it doesn't really matter. What you need to be doing is identifying and using any one of these three different approaches for this. First approach is maybe adding newer variations to that one single winning product. So if the color of the product you sell is red, maybe add one in the color blue, or maybe change the shape of it, or maybe change the size of it, and just offer a different variation. Also, what you can do if you don't really have ways to source a brand new product in a different color, size, etc., is to just offer it as a bundle. So one variation, one size, it's just one product itself. Second variation is buy 3 together. Third variation, buy 5 together, so on and so forth. Supplement brands do this really well, and it works because it helps add more variations with Google, and each variation with Google acts as its own individual product, which you can then test. But along with that, you can offer things like more products that are similar to the winning product itself. So if it's already a winning product, for example, then you can add something that's similar, a complementary product. If the winning product is shoe, for example, shoes, then you can sell socks along with it or something along those lines. Just complementary products to kind of support the main winning product. But final piece of advice is, instead of adding things, when you start to scale to the next level, focus on simplification. So what I see so many brands do is when they start scaling, they start adding a bunch of fancy approaches, they start adding a bunch of campaigns. And this is very important because what this does is it makes the algorithm's life much harder. Instead of making it easier for the algorithm to scale, you now added 10 different things which now the algorithm has to cater to even know which way to scale, whether it's the right way to scale, whether it's not the right way, etc. And that just kind of complicates the entire process. Generally not a good approach to begin with. So instead, what you want to be doing is when you start scaling, cut out all the other BS, cut out all the other bad campaigns which just aren't performing at the level that you want them to perform. You have to be very strict when you start scaling and only focus on the select few campaign types that are working, whether it's maybe one performance max campaign or whether it's 2 search campaigns, whatever it is, double down on it and really start to increase the budgets on that as much as you can, because that's how you will be able to achieve true long-term scale. With that, if you run a brand doing $1 million a year and you want to scale to multi 7 figures with Google Ads, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me to see essentially how we can work together and make that happen. But check out this case study I did of a brand we applied a lot of these advices to scale to multi 8 figures with Google Ads alone.